I am a 21-year-old female, and my partner is a 20-year-old female. We just started actually dating, but we've known each other for a pretty short amount of time, maybe around 5 to 6 months beforehand. We used to hang out as friends and stuff like that. One day, we eventually just started making plans and hanging out. Since I have a studio apartment, whenever she would get too drunk or anything like that, she would just sleep over. After sleeping over, and through physical and emotional connection, we ended up wanting more of a relationship. It was definitely quick, but it didn't feel completely wrong at the time. She started opening up to me about how she's having problems with her parents, hinting that her dad is possibly hurtful. Eventually, she continued to spend the night and would go home at least 2 to 3 days out of the week. However, this recent time, she definitely overstayed probably about a full 7 days and didn't go home. Her situation is that she's been applying for jobs and she has been getting interviews. But when I first started hanging out with her as a friend maybe a month ago, she was fired from her job and confided in me about it. I definitely feel like within that time, she could have put in more effort to find something so that she could be financially stable. Even a few weeks back, she went to New York extremely broke and would ask me to send her money and things. And I did send it to her because I did not want her to be unhappy and stuck in bed for her whole trip. However, it just seems like overall, I am placed in a financially supportive position. I'm always paying for her food. Every time she overstays, I have to buy extra tissues and paper towels for my apartment. Her only activities that she can think of involve going out to eat. And she didn't even leave or anything. I will say she did get me gifts like flowers and a concert ticket. But my concern is even when she does have money, she still expects me to cover her food and things. Basically, I was slowly watching my bank account get drained day by day, the more that she was staying with me. Every time that I would ask, "Oh, so when are you going home?" she would get defensive and say, "So you don't want me here then?" Which would make me feel pretty guilty. She managed to stay an extra 3 days because I didn't want to press her about going home or make her feel unwanted. But the majority of why I wanted her to go home was because of the financial stress that it was putting on me every single day. Even when I had groceries, she only eats specific things, so if I didn't have that, she just wouldn't eat. Whenever she wouldn't eat, she would be in bed all day on her phone and just not happy, not productive, none of that. So I was trying to avoid dealing with that. This is going to make me sound so silly and dumb, but I probably spent a good $500 to $600 in a month on her. My last straw was the other night when I started dropping hints that I just don't have enough money. I only had about $50 left, and she wanted me to DoorDash her food, which is even more expensive, and I said that I couldn't do that. She wanted Waffle House, and of course she ordered 2 things. Waffle House isn't cheap anymore. It was about $25. I literally had to tell her to take off the waffle and just have the entree because I just didn't have the funds for that. I couldn't even get myself something to eat from Waffle House. I literally starved that night. I brought this up to her, and her only real response was, "Oh, do you want me to pay you back? I can just send you money for the food." But it's like, if you had money for the food, why didn't you just pay for it from the start, or at least offer to split it? Like, if you can buy me flowers and $80 concert tickets, you can definitely afford to cover some of your food. What really triggered me was the next morning. I already started off my day arguing with my neighbor. Overall, I just wanted to leave. She was asking if we were still going to go to the thrift store, and it's like, I literally had to spend $20 last night on your Waffle House. Anyways, I texted her respectfully about the situation, and she immediately started getting defensive, claiming that I was blaming her for my spending, saying that she doesn't control what I spend, and accused me of making this a bigger deal than it was. She accused me of lying. I ended up taking pictures of all the wasted food that I bought for her that she either left in my fridge or just left on my counters and didn't clean up. She ended up blocking me after that. To add, I did post a picture of her flowers knocked over on the floor on my Instagram story and said that I just don't really like flowers. She proceeded to say that I was evil called me offensive names, and said that no one is going to love me and that I'm going to regret this, etc. Essentially, she put all the wrongdoing on me because of the flowers and didn't take any accountability for any of the things she had said before blocking me. She also said that I ruined her perception of love and that she doesn't want to talk to me again. At first, I felt really guilty, but now I'm beginning to feel like she's being manipulative. She's probably telling all her friends that I just hurt her and that I'm in the wrong, even though I overextended kindness to her. I guess my question is, does posting about the flowers make me a terrible person? Am I being unreasonable and blaming her for my spending? At the beginning of our situation, I had about $1,500. Now I'm down to my last 50. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This girl is bad news. They do not understand or have empathy towards your best interests. This is not someone to attempt to settle down with. Especially showing this many red flags at the start, it's not worth trying to keep the relationship going long term. Get out while you still can. If going out to eat is the only activity she can think of in regard to spending time with you, this person doesn't want to get to know you. There are 1,000,001 free activities that can be done for dates or hangouts. Comment 2. Also, get her out of your apartment before she stays long enough to qualify for squatters' rights. Duration varies from state to state, but if she lives in your unit long enough, she basically becomes a tenant with the same rights to the space as you do, and she'll have to be formally evicted to get out, which can take months. This is why many leases forbid guests from staying for too many days in a row. Now for the update, a few days after the diner mess, I get a text from my ex asking if we could talk. Honestly, I thought I was done with this whole situation, but I figured I'd at least hear her out. I mean, what else could she have to say? She suggested we meet at the local diner we used to hang out at. I always loved that place, but now it just felt like a reminder of everything that went down. Anyway, I agreed. I get there, and she's already late. When she finally shows up, she's flustered and not making eye contact. Like at all. It's like she's trying to avoid any real connection. She orders this massive meal, and I'm sitting there thinking, really? You're still not even attempting to contribute here? So she starts talking, and immediately she's accusing me of not understanding her struggles. I'm like, okay, here we go. I bring up the financial stress because, duh, that's been a huge part of our problems. I ask her if she's been looking for work at all. She deflects and says she's been too busy with family issues. Family issues? Really? I mean, I get it, but come on. I've been supporting you entirely, and now you're acting like you have no time to even look for a job. I tell her I'm feeling drained from carrying this whole thing, and she just raises her voice, calling me unreasonable and selfish. At this point, there's a couple sitting nearby, and they're totally listening in on our conversation. I can feel their eyes on us, like they're trying to figure out what this whole scene is about. I try to explain my perspective, but of course, she cuts me off. She claims I'm not there for her and that I only care about money. Then she drops this huge accusation, accusing me of being controlling. Like, really? You're gonna make a scene at the diner with that? I stood up, feeling the urge to just bail on this whole conversation, but I knew I had to stay and finish this. It felt like we were just going in circles, and I had to suggest that maybe we take a break from each other to reassess things. I wasn't ready to end things completely, but we needed some space. She reacted so strongly to that suggestion, though. She couldn't believe I would just give up on her like this. She ended up storming out of the diner, leaving her food untouched and just a big old scene behind. I sat there for a minute, trying to process everything. I thought that was the end of it. But later that week, I get a call from her family. They inform me that she's been staying with them for a few days now. They sound really worried about her well-being and finances, and I can tell they're coming from a good place. But then it hits me that they don't know the full story about her staying over at my place. They kind of assume that we were in a normal relationship, and I was just kicking her out for no reason. I agree to meet with them to discuss their concerns, hoping for some clarity. At the meeting, her family is tense and defensive right from the start. They ask me about my intentions with her and why I'm not supporting her. I explain the financial burden I've been under and how she hasn't been making any effort to find work. It's like a light bulb goes off for some of them because they seem shocked. A few family members even express disbelief at her behavior, which is fair enough. Then the conversation spirals into this back and forth argument with accusations flying everywhere. Just as things are getting heated, my ex walks in, looking shocked at the whole confrontation. She tries to defend herself, but her family corners her with a million questions. I emphasize that I care for her and want her to do well, but she has to take some responsibility. That's when she breaks down and admits she's scared and overwhelmed by everything. We end up having this long discussion, and she finally agrees to start job hunting. I even suggest we set some boundaries for our relationship moving forward to make things fair for both of us. Her family supports the idea and offers to help her find work. We all agree to check in with her weekly to hold her accountable. I feel relieved that we're at least moving in a better direction. It's not perfect, but I really hope this helps her get back on her feet. Edit. After a few weeks, her family contacted me again, expressing concern about her mental health, which surprised me. Am I the idiot for cutting off my depressed boyfriend after he stole my tuition money and begged for more? I am a 26-year-old female who recently got a new job that required me to move to a first-world country. My boyfriend, who is 26 years old, and I are currently in a long-distance relationship while he is residing in a third-world country, struggling to find a job due to high unemployment and the possibility of war. I met my boyfriend in college back in my home country, and we've been together for over 3 years. He lost his job in late 2023, and given that he has clinical depression, it has taken a huge toll on him. I also struggle with money, but I worked hard to make it through college and pay rent in my apartment. My boyfriend would come over almost every week, and we'd do regular couple activities together. They weren't much, but they meant spending quality time together. During my last month of college, I submitted my dissertation and graduated, despite it being incredibly difficult for me to make it through financially. But finally, I earned my degree. I had one payment left to make to my college, which was about $1,400. My mother helped me with it, providing me the full amount in cash, since we don't use bank payments in my home country due to the economic crisis. The last week before traveling for my new job, I wanted to pay the rest of my tuition, only to discover that my boyfriend had taken $600 from it without asking. I was livid and had a mental breakdown because I was afraid I would jeopardize the requirements for my new job. He cried a lot and said it wasn't him and he had been feeling low. I told him it wasn't my responsibility. He promised he would make it up to me and said he would cover it by the end of the month. Months went by, and he was upset almost every day, saying he didn't know how to cover it. I eventually found someone, my best friend, to loan him the money so he could pay my college tuition. He only managed to cover $400, and I covered the remaining $200 from my own pocket. He did this to me knowing I was traveling and starting a new job. I told him it was over and that I would never forgive him. He fought hard for it and insisted he would turn his life around. He is currently making improvements, but all these changes benefit him, not me. Positive outlook on himself, financial stability, etc. He said he would spend the rest of his life trying to make it up to me and that breaking up was not an option. He claimed he was going to be the one to build our life together, not me. Now for an update. He informed me yesterday that he got a good job there and he's excited to start. I was happy for him and went to sleep. I opened my phone in the morning and saw a 2-minute voice note sent at 4 a.m. in which he said he wanted me to be completely honest, and if it didn't make me comfortable, I shouldn't agree to it. He also stated that if it put me in a dire financial situation, I had every right to say no. He wants around $400 to help cover his transportation and some expenses as he tries to take care of himself and improve his depression. I'm not feeling good about it. In fact, I'm a little nauseous and feel guilty for being in a privileged position in my life. What do you all think? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Do not give him more money. He has shown you at this point in his life he doesn't follow through on financial promises. your new job and move and all that means, I am sure you don't have a lot of extra money just sitting there. It is needed for your life right now. I'm sorry he is making you feel upset by this, but get the guilty thinking out of your head. He needs to work on pulling himself up after taking $600 without permission. I certainly wouldn't bring that up to $1,000. You know what will happen. Let's get married and no reason to pay it back. You do it now. Next month he will want more. Be there as a supporter, but not financially. Cover yourself first. Comment 2. First of all, congratulations on graduating. Second, I'm sorry, but he took your money once without asking. That is a huge problem. And with that mentality, I guarantee you, if you gave in and gave him $400, it will not be the last time he asks. Personally, I know you two clearly have a lot of history, but he doesn't seem good for you. It probably seems selfish to leave someone who is supposedly depressed, but sometimes you need to worry about your own self-health first. Now, for the update. 2 days after my boyfriend asked me for $400, he texts me to ask if I've listened to the voice note. I still haven't listened to it, honestly, because I just haven't been able to bring myself to do it. I get his text, and I just sit there staring at it for a good few minutes. Like I know I need to respond or else it's going to be awkward, but I also don't want to do this right now. Eventually, I just say I got his voice note, but I need to think about it. I felt like it was the most neutral thing I could say without getting into it, you know? That evening, I go to a family dinner for my grandma's birthday. It's a big family thing, and the atmosphere is really nice. Everyone's joking and telling stories, and it feels good to be around everyone. At dinner, my mom asks how things are going with my boyfriend, and I feel this knot in my stomach. Like I knew it was coming, but still. I mention the job update, but I don't say anything about the money request. I just didn't want to make things worse, you know? After dinner, we all play games, and my younger brother jokingly brings up how I used to send my boyfriend care packages. Everyone laughs, and I feel a little embarrassed, but I laugh it off. Then my sister asks if I'm planning on visiting my boyfriend soon, and I feel uncomfortable again. My grandma starts telling a story about her long-distance relationship, and I can't help but feel uneasy about my own situation. The next morning, I wake up to a bunch of frantic texts from my boyfriend saying he didn't get the job. Apparently, someone else was a better fit, and he's feeling hopeless again. I just sit there reading his texts, feeling for him, but also a little, confused. I don't respond right away. I decide to reach out to my mom for advice about the money request, and when I tell her, she's shocked. She basically says, I shouldn't help him financially again after what happened with the tuition money. I totally agree with her, but I didn't want to say that to my boyfriend. A few days later, my boyfriend calls me, and he sounds really desperate. He's pleading with me to reconsider helping him. He goes on about how he's in a bad place and can't afford food or rent. That makes me feel a little uneasy, though, because I just don't know if I can trust him. I set a boundary and tell him I can't send him any money. He gets angry and questions if I even care about him anymore. The argument escalates from there, and I end up hanging up, feeling really frustrated. I wanted to stay distracted, so that weekend I went to a friend's birthday party. It was okay, but at the party I ran into an old friend who asked how things were going with my boyfriend. I ended up sharing some of the recent issues, and my friend expressed concern and skepticism about the relationship. I appreciated it in a way, but it also made me second-guess myself. That night, my boyfriend video called me. He looked upset and started accusing me of abandoning him. He showed me his empty fridge and said he's been struggling to find food and housing. He even threatened to end things if I wouldn't support him. I just felt cornered and didn't know what to say. The next week, I saw on social media that my boyfriend was out with friends, posting pictures of a night out. He looked so happy, and it just infuriated me. I confronted him about the pictures, and he brushed it off, saying he's just trying to cope. The argument escalated, and he accused me of not caring about him. I just felt so unheard, so I decided to block him on social media. A few days later, I got a message from one of his friends asking why they're fighting. His friend mentioned that he's struggling and needs support, which just made me feel guilty all over again. I unblocked my boyfriend to send him a message, but he left me on read. A week later, he called me, and he sounded different, like more composed. He said he found a temporary job, but still expects me to support him. That was it for me. I just felt like I couldn't keep dragging myself into his struggles. I messaged him to say I think we should end things. I know it'll hurt him, but I just feel like it's necessary. He responds with rage, accusing me of being heartless. I just know this decision is final, so I blocked him again. Edit: my boyfriend hasn't contacted me since I blocked him. His friends have reached out, but I've ignored their messages. Am I the idiot for dumping my fiancé after finding out he was cheating with Sarah? This came as a total shock to me, a 35-year-old woman. He is a 42-year-old man and has said before that he was not sure about having a child, but since I do want a child and our relationship was flourishing, he was willing to consider it. 3 months ago, we got engaged and moved in together, and since then, all expectations have changed. He expects me to be a traditional woman of the home while managing my corporate job. He owns his own company and comes from a trust fund, so he works fewer hours than I do overall and has more flexibility. It's been a huge adjustment for me as I moved into his house, and along the journey, he has become less interested in the value of marriage, but is open to a wedding ceremony under his circumstances, which include a prenuptial agreement and a small ceremony. Now, things aren't going as well because our vision for the future relationship has been changing from pre-engagement to actually being engaged. He also has kinks that he wants to explore almost nightly because it helps him sleep and feel loved. Last night, I wasn't in the mood and said no, and during the course of the night, I left our bed and slept in another room. He said he woke me up in the middle of the night, and I apparently wasn't very nice. But I don't have any recollection of it. I've always been a deep sleeper and have been told and acknowledge that I can get grumpy if woken from a deep slumber. This morning, he harshly told me it was my fault and explained why he was in the other room. I asked to verify if I heard him say it was my fault he didn't sleep, and he said yes. I started to feel upset about it and explained that I felt blamed and that it was affecting me. I expressed my concern about his being so upset, since he said it was a deal breaker the way I acted in the middle of the night. This behavior is something I've dealt with since I was 3 or 4 years old, and I feel overwhelmed because he wants to be able to wake me up in the night to help him soothe himself. When we discussed it this morning, I mentioned I was worried this behavior seems so childish and related to his childhood trauma. I also conveyed my concern that this behavior and arguing do not bring us closer together and do not help us feel safe about having a child. He then said he didn't want a child and tried to problem solve by saying he'd be okay if I had a child with someone else, like a donor, but that we would stay together. I'm just heartbroken. I don't understand his values. I wouldn't want a relationship like this. He says if we can get to a better place, then maybe we could consider having a child in the future. I'm 35, so I am scared and not feeling confident that we will get there. We're in individual therapy, couples therapy, and our therapists are speaking to each other. He has been divorced before, while this is my first time being engaged and my first time having a relationship this complex. What sage advice would you give your daughter, friend, or woman dealing with this? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I would tell my daughter that this is a classic bait and switch. Once he got you under his roof, he changed his mind about children. I assume he's okay with you having a baby via a donor because he's either had a vasectomy or thinks he would have no financial obligation if you split. His demands for intimacy or he can't sleep are unreasonable. He clearly thinks his wants outweigh yours. I'm willing to bet his behavior was the reason for the divorce and broken engagement. Honestly, you need to walk away. Comment 2. I would tell my daughter or friend that she is in a relationship with a manipulative, hurtful person and to get out. His expectation of on-demand intimacy so he can be soothed and sleep. Him telling you that you are the reason he couldn't sleep. Darling, that's hurtful behavior. His complete turnaround on things once you got engaged and moved in. Total bait and switch. He thinks he can control the situation now. If you need all that therapy before you've even gotten married, there is a problem. Google Darvo. Now, for the update, I'm back with a new update. It's been a little over a month since my last post, and things have gotten way worse. The couple's therapy sessions have become super intense. They're basically shouting matches now, and the arguments have started spilling over into our daily lives. I can't escape this. My fiancé has started to withdraw even more and is often spending late nights at work and canceling plans we made together. He's basically a ghost in our home. One night, I was feeling really lonely, so I decided to go to a dinner party at my parents' house. I thought maybe some family time would help me feel better. My mom casually asked about wedding plans, and I just felt this wave of anxiety. My fiancé didn't even show up to the dinner. He had previously committed to coming, but of course that didn't happen. During dinner, my brother announced that he and my sister-in-law are having a second baby. Everyone was excited, but I just sat there feeling totally deflated. After dinner, I noticed my fiancé had texted me multiple times, blaming me for not updating him on the evening. Dude, you weren't there. How am I supposed to update you on things you aren't even a part of? Later that week, I discovered a receipt for a hotel stay in my fiancé's email. The hotel was booked for the same weekend as our couple's therapy session. That set off alarm bells in my head. I confronted him about it, and he claimed it was a work event he forgot to tell me about. Really? You forgot to mention a hotel stay for a work event? I started to investigate further. I checked his phone for texts and calls, and found messages that raised so many questions, including exchanges with a woman named Sarah. When I confronted him about it, he dismissed my concerns, insisting Sarah was just a colleague from work. Yeah, right. At our next therapy session, the therapist encouraged open dialogue. But guess what? Tensions flared again. He accused me of being controlling and paranoid, claiming I was ruining the progress we've made. Progress? What progress? I attended a family gathering for my cousin's birthday where I was asked about my relationship. To avoid awkwardness, I downplayed our issues and faked happiness. After the party, I received a call from a private investigator who had been hired anonymously. They claimed to have information about my fiancé's whereabouts and activities. I decided to meet the investigator at a coffee shop to hear more. They revealed my fiancé had been seen at the hotel with a woman matching Sarah's description. Armed with this new info, I went home and confronted him. He denied everything and accused me of being untrusting, leading to a heated argument. I arranged a meeting with my brother and sister-in-law to discuss my situation. They offered to help me gather more evidence, suggesting we could all go to the hotel under the guise of a family outing. So we went. I spotted my fiancé's car in the parking lot and my heart dropped. We entered the hotel and approached the front desk, pretending to inquire about a room. The staff mentioned a couple checking in, describing the woman as someone who matched Sarah's profile. We took the elevator, and I felt this strange mixture of excitement and dread. We reached the right floor, and my brother knocked on the door of the room where my fiancé was staying. He opened the door and looked shocked to see us there. The confrontation was intense, and he struggled to explain as I stood there silent. Instead of arguing, I calmly turned and walked away. Thank you for reading. Edit. After the encounter at the hotel, I ended our engagement and moved out. I blocked all communication with him. My brother and sister-in-law were supportive, helping me through the breakup. I was heartbroken, but knew it was the right choice. I realized I deserve better. I'm focusing on myself now. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.